Hey, we're back. We talked about creation, right? We said how uh, there are four worlds, there are 10 spheres in each world, and that's how Hashem funneled this whole system of infinite light down to this lowly little world. Now, I said in the earlier video that man was created in God's image, and so was the world. So the same 10 spheres that exist in each world exist in man. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. As I mentioned, 3 of them are intellectual faculties and 7 are emotional. So wisdom, uh, understanding, and knowledge, we all have that in our brains. All of our emotion feels like it comes from our heart. So anything that we feel, anger, happiness, anxiety, fear, love, whatever it is, all that stuff rests in those 7 emotive attributes. But something that I want to get into more detail about right now is kind of mind blowing, but will really explain a lot about yourself. And this is kind of human psychology, understanding your spiritual DNA. So, believe it or not, every single one of us, every Jewish person has 2 neshamas. Not one, 2 neshamas. And basically, on one side we have our godly soul, on the other side we have our animal soul. Now, our body is mostly responding to what our animal soul wants. Our neshama kind of lives up here in the brain, our godly neshama. So that soul pretty much always feels connected to Hashem and wants what Hashem wants. The animal soul kind of wins the battle all the time. It's the better fighter. It's the one who puts up, a bigger war, wages a bigger war against you. Is much stronger than your godly soul. So your godly soul is kind of held captive in your body, and your animal soul is the one that's sort of always on top, just pushing and suppressing the godly soul. Now, the entire test of this whole creation is for our godly soul to rise over our animal soul. And imagine, right? If your body is like a city that has 2 presidents, and one president has this big ass army, right? And the thing's just going, and the soldiers are everywhere, and they got all the ammunition. And there's another president who's still the president, who just kind of lives in his own little, White House somewhere. And, he has a couple little soldiers, but they can't really do that much except for certain times, like, i.e., when you daven, when you learn, and all of a sudden that feels really strong. But the second that you stop, that president goes back into hiding and the other president shows up. So this is how a Jewish neshama is made up. Essentially, we have 2 parts, where there's this constant push and pull of fighting, which way am I going to go? And that explains, and get ready, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to be pretty real with this, how on one hand, you can be in shul, davening on Yom Kippur, and feeling like you're a freaking angel, and a day later, you're watching some YouPorn. And that's the reality. If you only had one neshama, you could only be one way. You either are good or bad. You can't simultaneously be both, or one second do this and the next second do that. But the reality is that we constantly have this push and pull, this Yaakov and Esav within us that's constantly fighting us. So, kind of picture like the angel on one side and the little Satan devil on the other side. That's legit. Some people know it as your Yetzer Hara and your Yetzer Tov, but your good and evil inclinations. But the reality is that that's just our genetic makeup. And the sooner you accept that, the easier it'll be to win battles, because I have a tremendous amount of friends and people who have come across who grew up in yeshivas, who grew up in Jewish day schools, who simply think that they are just evil people. They'll never be as good as they should be because they think, wrongly, that they are supposed to be great. They think that if they do these other evil things, that somehow that shines a light on who they are and that they're not good. And that all those righteous people, those tzaddikim, those are people who never do anything wrong. Happens to be that that's not true. The quicker you accept that your reality, and remember who gave us this reality. Hashem himself created us this way. So if you're going to blame anyone, blame him, right? I know that's controversial, but that's the reality. He made you this way. He gave you the ability to choose left and right. He gave you the inner desires that each of us have to do something great and a second later something terrible. To be davening Shmona Esrei and thinking about terrible things. It happens to everyone. And the reason it happens is because of this constant push and pull. So in the next video, we'll get into more detail about what each side wants. And the main point here is to just understand and accept that this is your reality. We were not built to be perfect. We were built to struggle. That's what he wants. Without the struggle, there's no success. Find me someone who won the lotto. He'll feel great. Find me the same person who made the same amount of money and with his own hard work. That guy feels like a winner. Not that I wouldn't win the lotto, but you get the point. So let's talk more in the next video, but please accept that this is your reality. This is how it was meant to be. Unless you're one of the great tzaddikim who was born here and gifted this ability to not have any animal soul that wants to fight it all the time, this is who we are. And so your reality is not a bad one. Accepting it will help you conquer.